welcome to Palace Confidential, the show where we look at all things royal, which is on every day this week. I'm Jo Elvin, and joining me on the panel today is the Mail on Sunday's Charlotte Griffiths and the Daily Mail's diary editor, Richard Eden. Lots to talk about today, including some more royal controversy behind the palace walls, so stick around for that. And if you enjoy this show, remember to like and subscribe to the Daily Mail Royals YouTube channel for more unrivaled royal videos. OK, so let's kick things off with today's events. The Queen's body has been returned to Buckingham Palace, and shortly after we record this, senior members of the royal family will lead a procession to the palace from the palace to Westminster Hall. Another big set-piece event for the family, Charlotte.
A huge set-piece event, and we're going to see something extraordinary, which is William and Harry walking behind a coffin for the first time since Diana died in 1997, and I think it's going to really touch our hearts, to be honest. And I think it could be a really good way for the brothers to somehow connect again over the shared memory, and what a unique and strange thing it is to have to do.
But what a horribly haunting thing to have to do, because that still haunts me, that image of those young boys. What on earth is going to be going through their minds?
I think it's appropriate use of the word triggering, which I don't usually like, but it is. I think they're just going to be transported right back, and they'll know all eyes are on them. I think it's going to be, I mean, good luck to them. It's going to be a tough morning for them.
Richard, inevitably the body language of the royals in such an event will be scrutinised. Do you have any predictions on all of that?
Well, I mean, at least they're being seen in this way at a very solemn event. So they know they're not the centre of attention. It's the Queen and it's the coffin. So they will be very serious. And, you know, it's going to be so hard to maintain that. I think it's pretty much a 40-minute walk, very slow pace, spectators all along the way. You know, and we've seen even sort of protesters. There was one protester anyway in Edinburgh. So they're aware of what's going on around them, and they have to be careful all the time. Yes, people will be watching for relations between William and Harry, and they'll be thinking back. But I think really it's the solemn nature of the occasion that will be the important thing. What
a mind game to have to play with yourself, though, when you know that everybody's going to be looking at that.
I think so.
They've got to look straight ahead and be really solemn, but also exchange friendly glances towards one another, I suppose, because we're going to be thinking, oh, they were cold with one another. But of course they have to be cold. It is a mind game. It's a total mind game.
Yeah, and there's been another spanner in the works with a statement that Prince Harry put out through his spokesman, you know, via Los Angeles yesterday.
Yes, shall I read that out for you now, actually? You mentioned that statement from Harry's spokesman. It says, Prince Harry will wear a morning suit throughout events honouring his grandmother. His decade of military service is not determined by the uniform he wears, and we respectfully ask that focus remain on the life and legacy of Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II. So what do you make of that comment, Richard? I
mean, let's be clear, you know, this is another real dig at his family. You know, it really is. He could have, first of all...
Do you not think it's a dig at the media more for sort of like speculating about it?
Well, first of all, he didn't need to say anything. He can just let actions speak louder than words, and people will see what he wears. Secondly, if he wanted to put out a statement, he could have just said, I'll be wearing military uniform and I'd like the focus to be on my grandmother throughout. Instead, he inserted this highly provocative sentence, you know, I don't need to put on a uniform, which is saying, look, I did active service. I, you know, was in the military for 10 years, but look at the others. Look at Prince Edward, who dropped out while training as a Royal Marine. Look at the others who never did active service. So there's that. And also particularly at Prince Andrew, who has been given this exception, remember, that he is allowed to wear his uniform just for one of the 5 events. And he's really making a point, I think.
I have some sympathy for why Harry's a bit dark about Andrew being able to wear his uniform, though.
I totally agree. It's such an own goal of the royal family, because they've extended the olive branch with the walk around and the flowers. And now they seem to have retracted that olive branch, given him a reason to be snarky. Although I have to say, I don't think it is that snarky, this statement. I think it is quite respectful and calm, compared to, do you remember when he said service is universal?
Oh, yeah, that was from both of them, wasn't it?
Yeah, and that was quite a snarky one. I felt like this was actually less snarky.
Well, don't worry, I'm sure there'll be lots more statements to come once they get back to California.
And a whole tomb full of them, because we've also had news on the book today via something Alison Boshoff has written in the Mail. What can you tell us about that?
Yeah, this was interesting. I mean, she's just reporting what Meghan's recent biographer, Tom Bower, has been saying, and that's that he is told that there's no question the book is coming out. He said it will be published in November, so very soon. And he went as far as to say to name the publishers who are going to be producing the book in Britain. And that it's all going ahead.
I mean, surely contracts have been inked for some time.
I think it's too late to row back.
Yeah.
I think it's quite likely it's incredibly complimentary about the Queen, so there's that. But maybe a little bit less so about his father and brother.
Well, we did discuss this on the show on Monday, Charlotte, with Richard Kay, whether or not Harry's relationship with the family is at a point of reconciliation or truce. And if this book comes out, it's more likely to be stagnated at truce, right?
Yeah, I think so. I think it is a truce. I think we'll get a little bit more of a sense of that today when we see them interacting with each other, whether this is a sort of truce or beginning of a new relationship. But yeah, unless he can stop the book. I mean, I did say on Monday, yeah, unless he can stop the book, they can't get on with him. They just won't be able to trust him.
I can't wait to see what happens there. But Richard, your Mail colleague Robert Hardman has called in today's paper for plans to be changed around Westminster so that more people can pay respects to Her Majesty?
Yes, I mean, lots of people were disappointed that the Queen's coffin was brought back from Edinburgh to London on a plane. It's something that's been arranged, but in the past, as with the Queen's father and others, they've come on the royal train. And what that did was it gave so many people a chance to see that train pass. I mean, I remember my own father has talked about his...
I thought you were going to tell me you were there. I was like, wow.
Yeah, my father's talked
You're a
about
vampire.
his memory of seeing that royal train.
Yeah.
And it's something that's really stuck with people. So what Robert's called for today is for basically the route to be extended. So when they take the Queen on her final journey from the funeral to Windsor, that it should go on a longer route, so more people. I mean, my goodness, we saw, last night when the coffin was transported from RAF Northolt, even though it was down a really busy road, the A40, there were people wanted to line the route. And I'm sure they would. So it was just a simple call, if it's possible, to try and extend that route and give as many people a chance to see her pass as possible.
Do you think that anyone will listen to that advice? Do you think that
I think
might
they
happen?
will, but there's lots of practicalities. The reason they didn't use the royal train was they were very worried about potential protests, about health and safety with people falling down embankments, that sort of thing. So, no one wants a disaster, and there are millions of people who would like to pay their respects in some way.
They must have recognised from yesterday, seeing all those people lining up on the motorway, they must realise how much of an appetite there is for a longer route, or to follow Robert Hardman's suggestion. Because, it's amazing seeing cars pull over on a motorway to look at the coffin.
But let's try and avoid disaster, please.
Yeah.
Lots more still to discuss, but let's take a look at today's montage. Each day this week, we've been putting together some galleries of some of our favourite images of the late Queen Elizabeth II, and today's theme is the life she spent with the late Duke of Edinburgh. Oh, some beautiful images there. Before we finish, I want to address another controversy, though, that has erupted behind palace walls, and the fact that up to 100 of staff at Clarence House were informed they could lose their jobs. The move comes as King Charles and Camilla the Queen Consort change roles. Richard, the timing of this has come in for some criticism.
Yes, it is. It is awful, and it's been seized on by the Guardian newspaper, which is a bit of a Republican newspaper, to cause trouble. I think the problem they had is inevitably staff will lose their jobs. You know, they have a lot of staff, and there were 2 households, and now Prince Charles is King Charles. He moves away from Clarence House, and there will be some redundancies. And from what I'm told, they wanted to wait until obviously after the funeral, but they were advised that legally they had a legal obligation to tell people as soon as possible.
Right.
When your job's under threat, you've got to be told, according to the law in our country. So it's unfortunate, but it is one of those things.
They were trying to reassure the staff, I felt. I felt the statement was reassuring. It said, you know, we'll look after you, we'll do our utmost to make sure that you're OK and that you're redistributed.
Yeah, that's what I've been made redundant a couple of times. Everyone says that. It really means much.
No, I think they are trying to find jobs for as many people as they can.
Are.
Yeah, well, no, you have to do that.
But remember, the palace can't win, because papers like The Guardian otherwise will be saying, why do you have so many staff?
Yeah.
You know, you're doubling up waste. It's all, you know, public money, that type of thing. So they are in a situation where they can't really win in some ways.
I would have thought it was the Queen's staff who had more to worry about. Do you know what I mean? Rather than King Charles would take his...
Yeah, you'd think you'd bring your own staff over.
Yeah.
I wonder whether if Harry and Meghan were still in the royal family, they would have seamlessly transitioned into being in charge of those staff, should they have had their own household, but of course they don't.
If there's room at Clarence House, I'll go. Do you think we might see shake-ups elsewhere, though, in the royal household?
Yeah, I do think so. I mean, one funny area is Camilla's taking over the racing. In an unofficial capacity. I think all the horses and the racing operation actually officially goes to King Charles. But she has a lot of horses on her hand. They have to be redistributed.
Oh, don't make the horses redundant.
I know, I'm so upset about horses.
Yeah.
And, you know, and all those trainers and owners. And, you know, there might be a little area there where there's a bit of movement.
Gosh, I mean, do you think, Richard, that King Charles will have to think about how he makes these decisions in the future, or do you just think it was decisive and right and that's just the way it is?
Can you imagine how much he's got on his plate at the moment?
Well, I really can't, actually. It's extraordinary. And no matter how many years we've been waiting for this, all of a sudden...
We did get a bit of sense of that yesterday. There was a video which went viral of the King being slightly irritable with his pens again. For some reason, no one seems to be able to give him some pens that work.
I know, but I do. I actually felt quite... I know everyone was laughing, but it just seemed like such a moment of displaced stress, and you can really understand that, I think.
Wasn't it fascinating watching Camilla swoop in, take the pen from him, soothe everything down, then sit down and sign? I mean, they've got a great dynamic there. She knows exactly when to calm him down.
And it was evident he'd forgotten what day it was, like most of us.
I didn't know if it was the 12th.
Well,
I bet.
we
He probably
can't
hasn't
keep
slept.
up.
Yeah.
And on a completely shallow side note, yet again, Camilla had an absolutely banging hat. Loved that black hat. That is a story we'll be certainly covering more of in the coming weeks on Palace Confidential. And if you want to keep up on all of these topics, a reminder to like and subscribe to the Daily Mail Royals channel. We'll be back on tomorrow and Friday this week, and we hope to see you then. My thanks to Charlotte Griffiths, Richard Eden, and as always to you for watching. Goodbye.